connecting. So let me
Okay,
just start.
great.
So, good morning, everyone. This is State of the Arts NYC, and this is your host, Savona Bailey-McClain. This morning, we are very pleased to have the dancer choreographer, Jonah Bokaer, on the line to talk to us about some exciting news that he has with his dance company. So, Jonah, thank you for joining us from the West Coast.
Absolutely. It's a great pleasure to join you. It's 8 a.m. in Palo Alto, and I'm very honored to be at Stanford, where I've received an acknowledgement, which is the More Visiting Artist. And it's great to talk with you. I'm such a huge fan of your show.
Well, thank you because I'm a fan of you as a dancer. And you have some exciting news to share with us because your dance foundation just was able to settle on a second facility in Brooklyn. And that's kind of important because when it comes to finding spaces for visual artists, dancers, other types of performance artists, it's kind of tough in New York City. And the fact that you were able to pull this off with your partner, John Jaspersy, I think that's a real accomplishment. So tell us a little bit first about the Center for Performance Research and then how you were able to make this all transpire.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Savona. It's been a long journey. The name of my organization is called Jonah Bokaer Arts Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
It has three banner programs. One of them is a dance entity that you mentioned. It's called Jonah Bokaer Choreography, which tours quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we have dancers here at Stanford, which is a pleasure. Um, there was a first facility called Shea Bushwick. There still is. It is stable and has been loyal and keeping its promises on affordable space in Brooklyn since 2002.
Okay.
And so that's exciting. We began as a free and $5 space, and we keep those free and low-cost programs going. We've often been called New York's most affordable workspace.
Mm.
Following the success of that, I've been able to have the opportunity to oversee, structure, and support CPR, Center for Performance Research, of which I'm a co-founder and co-owner, which has been tremendously exciting. Center for Performance Research is housed within Brooklyn's first LEED Gold building of its kind, size, and type, which is a thrill to be able to offer that to Brooklyn on a different kind of level and with infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
So this for my nonprofit organization is the second of three affordable art space initiatives. Center for Performance Research is based in Williamsburg, which still stays and remains a vibrant neighborhood and a hopping neighborhood. But we hope to continue this in perpetuity as a lot of vital spaces have closed
Yes.
due to the rent increase, due to the change of zoning in the Williamsburg waterfront, due to market factors such as transportation. So it's a thrill, and what my organization is able to report on is the completion of its portion of the mortgage. We are now a mortgage-free organization and have the opportunity right now to even expand to Hudson, New York,
Wonderful.
where with cash prizes I have purchased a third facility. So it's a tremendous time. I feel quite honestly humbled to be able to offer this and to deliver on my organization's mission, which is very much about providing dance, public programming, and affordable workspace.
So you're one of the few organizations in New York City, and I mean dance organizations, that really can say this. I believe Alvin Ailey is one organization where they might be mortgage-free. Then you also have a couple of other groups. Bill T. Jones has a facility in Chelsea, New York Live Arts. You also have Dance Theater of Harlem. They have a facility on 152nd Street. There's another dancer, former dancer, who also has a facility that she's able to offer affordable spaces for dancers in the city as well. There's just like a handful of institutions. So this is pretty important. Would you say you're the only one in Brooklyn that can say they're mortgage free, or are there a few others?
Well, I think what you're picking up on, Savona, is how rare this is for
Mm-hmm.
dance organizations.
Yes, it is.
That is a thrill to. I agree, and it's a thrill to agree with you. This is very rare. I think my organization, Jonah Bokaer Arts Foundation, is now underway with a 5-year business plan. So we
Mm-hmm.
take the planning side of it very diligently and very seriously. We also tend to work with a great number of multi-year grants in order
Okay.
to provide these services and also to keep the price points stable. My organization partners with Prospect Hill Foundation, the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, Ford Foundation, and many others. We're actually now continuing the dialogue and reopening the dialogue now that there is no mortgage, and perhaps the structure will change for the better, actually. That's, to be announced a bit later, but we are looking at also our colleagues in the field, and to forefront this conversation is not only the positive news, but really gathering the facts about where are we at with dance space in New York City and
Mm-hmm.
also with affordable dance space in New York City. I feel passionate about these issues from the beginning, since 2002,
Okay.
and also for a time had the chance to serve. I was very honored to serve on the board of Dance NYC,
Yes. I
um,
was there this
which is,
weekend.
oh, great, for the
Mm-hmm.
symposium.
Yes.
Yes, yes, they do just a tremendous job. And as a former board member, I was able to appreciate the data that was, first of all, gathered,
Mm-hmm.
and then, second of all, made use of to understand the great amount of dance that occurs in New York City, and to analyze the data, be it the number of companies that need space, and the very, very few number of companies and nonprofits which own space, which you're right, it's very few. I think that then becomes even smaller in terms of the number of entities which own mortgage-free. So that is a distinguishing factor. Speaking personally, what I'm inspired to do is then consider, I'm still in my 30s here, and looking
Really?
to
You
see
that
how this
young?
kind
Oh my God, you're like a
of
baby to
well,
me.
no, I'm definitely not actually, but that's kind. And I think what it brings up is what can I do from here? What can I offer from here if this is a stable platform or model that can be that has had the gift of some early success, then what can we do for Brooklyn moving forward? I am also based in Brooklyn since the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, and want to reaffirm my loyalty to that, and also to providing services.
Well, one of the things I spoke to the current acting executive director for Dance NYC, Alexandra Duque Cifuentes.
Oh, good.
And
She's fantastic.
yeah, she is. She was bubbly all weekend. And one of the things that I spoke to her about was the issue of public spaces. That there is such a demand for art, but yet there's not enough venues for small and mid-sized groups. That we should be looking at public spaces, and I have been advocating that for a long time. And then she told me how she too was thinking about the same thing, and how we probably need to come together and work on that, because it's all about the permitting in New York City, and permitting, whether it's outdoors or for a facility like yours, it's cumbersome. And so
Right.
we need to all work together across disciplines to really advocate for that, because New York City overall has gotten so expensive as a
Right.
city for performers and for visual artists, that, a lot of people are leaving the city because they just can't afford it. And that's not good, because the future then of the arts in New York City will then be in crisis if we don't help develop and stabilize groups so that they can continue to perform. Another thing that I feel is important is more collaborations, and I think you do that quite a bit, don't you?
First of all, this conversation is a pleasure. I completely agree, and the word I would use is subsidy or
Mm-hmm.
subsidize.
Mm-hmm.
I know that the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, with whom I continue to work very closely, as does my organization.
Mm-hmm.
The current commissioner is Tom
Yes.
Finkelpearl, and he has a tremendous staff. Um, we work closely with them, and the word I would use is subsidize. The DCA, I think, is the largest funding entity in New York City.
In the country, too.
And is that right?
Yeah,
Is that
they're
right?
one of the
Well,
largest in the country as well.
I'm pleased that you have your facts this morning. That's I'm thankful for that. I have my cup of coffee, but but you really have the facts. I was looking at attending the Dance NYC symposium as
Mm-hmm.
a former board member, especially some of the panels on space. But to answer your question, we're going to have to stabilize the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
I was very fortunate to move to Bushwick in 2002 and obtain a facility, actually a 3,000 square foot facility, which concurrently to making my own work, I made publicly available
Mm-hmm.
for other groups to use. And this quickly became pretty much around the clock kind of usage. And I think that's due to the need that you're describing. Which I really agree with. That's a great point. We will have to also pay it forward
Right.
and to look at younger groups, and perhaps the changing needs of younger groups too. I happen to agree. I think that my peers and also artists a bit younger than me are looking to collaboration, and a more fluid model of making work. Uh, Also drawing on other forms such as
Yes.
performance,
Yes.
performance art, visual art, and I think I've been very careful about how to design initiatives, or let's even say programs that might be able to act as the container for this. Um, so that's a way of me agreeing with you, is that the collaboration side that is happening in New York and in the outer boroughs is very real. And how we're going to pay that forward for young people is constantly on my mind.
Okay, that's good because when I look at Europe, which they're going through a lot of change too. It's not perfect, but nonetheless, Europe has for many decades supported, subsidized, or just outright paid for spaces or operating budgets for performance groups, operatic groups, visual artists across the continent. And when we compare that to the United States has a very different philosophy, and I think that has hindered a lot of development of American works and picking up on all of the nuances of American life, from the rural Midwest to the southern, marshlands to urban cities. And I'm very concerned about that because it's more about
Mm.
money, and you can't just say, well, you got to get ticket sales when you're not cultivating an audience base. So if the arts is viewed as elitist and people are having fewer and fewer access to the arts, then you're not going to have much of a future going forward. So that concerns me.
I agree with that. I would add and harmonize with you on a subject that's often related to this.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've mentioned the economic side of it, and the diversity side of it is huge. I come from a half Middle Eastern background, and I think that in terms of audiences, which you mentioned, it's going to be very important that ticket buyers see themselves inside the institutions or on the stages that they wish to attend at night or to a matinee or bring their families to. And this is we're in a nation that has unbelievable diversity, and it's an
Yes.
asset. And we don't always know what to do with that asset or talk about that asset. I think it's often, riddled with tension and with,
Mm-hmm.
And also we forefront the problems, but I look at Brooklyn and have lived in Brooklyn since the beginning and really look at that as one of our greatest assets. I would add to that families
Yes.
have a particular capacity to bring it together, and I think when you get to the programming side of it, I notice showtimes in Brooklyn being a little bit earlier, 30 minutes earlier,
Hmm.
or more matinees. And I think that's maybe there's a transportation side to that, but I think as soon as there's an audience-friendly, family-friendly accessibility ADA factor, then you're positioning an organization, or it could be, sometimes in my case, is a facility that's able to welcome all people.
Huh.
That is very much on my mind as well. I'm speaking broadly here in response to your points, but I think that those comments hold true for Brooklyn. And I'm maybe they're fresh on my mind just taking this interview from California, because I am so inspired and overwhelmed by these young people that I see. And particularly in an educational context, really the prominence of representation from Asia as
Okay.
well. But I hear you. I think that the accessibility factor too remains key and is going to remain key for Brooklyn.
I like that. I did not know that because I kind of split myself these days between Manhattan and Brooklyn
Mm-hmm.
when I do things. And that's a very important observation you just made there, that perhaps people are paying attention to their demographics and where families are growing, and they're seeing an opportunity. And if you have
Right.
more families with more children, here's an opportunity to develop that next generation. That's a very good observation. I like that very much. And I think more and more people should talk about that. How do we make things more family friendly? And so, therefore, we can try to bring in that next generation. I know some people like to focus just on arts in the schools or arts
Mm.
education. Believe it or not, I'm more for the family-friendly model, because when I was growing up in New York City, schools had relied on families to decide what sort of cultural activities they wanted their children to engage in. So schools
Right.
limited themselves to maybe chorus or orchestra or theater. But in your neighborhood, you had someone that taught
Mm.
piano, trumpet, etiquette, dance. And so I like that because it was more mixed. And
Mm.
those people served as role models. And you had to respect those people, and you provided them also with an income. So there was this vitality in neighborhoods. And I miss
Right.
that. And I would like to see more of it. And I think your research facility is trying to do that, wouldn't you say?
Well, here's where I agree with what you just said in a big way. And what the data shows as well. The neighborhood of Bushwick, where my organization's first affordable space is and remains, it's a predominantly Ecuadorian neighborhood actually,
Mm.
and that neighborhood is swelling and changing in a tremendous way. I don't think it's being overpriced yet, but I do see a tremendous influx of artists. And what I think that is doing is it's creating a kind of economic helix that we need to understand and that we need to think about.
Okay.
And when Bushwick Open Studios occurs, it has over 900 active art spaces. So I mean that's a
Yeah.
huge promise for culture and for what it can do. A lot of the programming is also free. Moving over to Williamsburg, where Center for Performance Research was opened in 2008, and that facility, like we mentioned, now has no mortgage. That the zoning of that facility on Manhattan Avenue in Jackson is a community facility.
Oh, okay.
That was done so deliberately. It's a ground floor community facility which is ADA accessible. So all of the pillars really are in place with that. However, Williamsburg, has a different demographic, and I like that you mentioned the demographics.
Mm-hmm.
There is a tremendous and traditional Italian community and a Hasidic community.
Mm-hmm.
Boricua College is not far away.
That's true.
With the BQE, you get all kinds of access. You get a real main transit line for all boroughs and even upstate New York. But what you also get is a tremendous and very new family population, including in the development that houses us, which has 8 residential units, many of whom are families.
Great.
So the family raising in Williamsburg is huge. It tends to be more towards the waterfront and the big, the actually what I would call the very noticeable, sometimes dramatic shift in development along the waterfront, whereas we are off of Graham Avenue with the Williamsburg Facility Center for Performance Research, which is a little bit more it's a little bit more old school Williamsburg, to be honest, where you get the names of the streets in different languages via Vespucci, which I absolutely love, and you still get the Polish deli or the Italian butcher. I think that's all still there in this particular part of Williamsburg. That's worth taking a look at with a facility that's zoned as a community facility. So I think, that's a way of agreeing with you. I'm able to publicly say now that due to prize money, I was able to purchase a third facility, which is in Hudson, New York, very close by to the Marina Abramovich Institute in Hudson.
Congratulations.
She very generously serves on our honorary board. And is a very leading performance art innovator. Hudson has, in my view, a very similar urban fabric to Brooklyn. And the population, one of the majority populations in Hudson is Bangladeshi. And so that's there's a kind of likeness and trust, I would say, I don't know, given my background and actually some of the audiences in Hudson, which are untapped. So we'll be doing some pilot programs in August there with a new grant as well.
Well, this is fascinating. I'm so happy for you, Jonah, because you really have been working very hard and diligently. He said, yes, I have. I've been working very hard. And no, this
with
is...
a smile.
Yes, always with a smile and always very graciously. I always have to say that you've always been very gracious to me, and I've seen you interact with others. You're extremely gracious to folks, and I think that good energy has brought you this wonderful opportunity. So I just want to thank you so much for, spending this time with us to tell us about the developments. And I'm hoping to catch up with you later this week because I like to talk to you further about a collaboration I would like to do with your group.
Oh, my goodness. That would be, open doors. We've always done amazing work together in and on behalf of Brooklyn. For those listening, we also welcome Savona to the Glass House.
Oh, yes.
Which is a tremendous crossover collaboration. Again, no stranger to collaboration and to architecture. That was in 2017. So I'd love to get current with each other, and I avidly subscribe to your show. So we should make that happen, and I hope everyone is getting ready for a fantastic spring in New York City, and hope everyone will come out and spend some of their time in Brooklyn.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too, and thank you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.